Good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year. Last year, I began my remarks by focusing on the urgency I felt and still feel to prioritize what mattered most in our community in light of being a new dad. This year, my daughter remains a joy and a source of motivation as I think about the future. But I'm also mindful that all Arlingtonians have major life events happening. I commit to doing my best to serve you. Here's what I want to spend my time on in 2025. First, we must serve the ideals at the heart of Arlington well. That means economic opportunity, compassion, inclusivity, and fairness. It also means, as you have said, Mr. Spain, being committed to both equity and to one Arlington. I look forward to working with you on those related priorities as I see it. Serving Arlington's ideals also means addressing the very real worries and concerns of our friends, families, and neighbors regarding the incoming administration. 4 years ago, on January 6, 2021, as Mr. Carantonis mentioned, as chair of the county board, I stood in my living room and talked to Mr. Schwartz and considered whether to order a curfew to protect Arlington residents. We received about 300 emails in 2 hours that afternoon. We never get that many emails in 2 hours. Yesterday, the Vice President certified the results of the election without delay or any drama. We must act within the integrity exhibited yesterday to preserve our democratic process. Specifically, we should do all we can as local government to protect our residents from federal actions inconsistent with our ideals. When we hit our limits, which as a local government we may and probably will hit, we will work with state or federal partners to ensure our community's voices are heard and lives are respected. Second, through mid-April 2025, as Mr. Carantonis mentioned, we will be working on a difficult budget. Later in January, we will find out if the decrease in the value of our office property tax base will lead to the county manager's projection of a $30 to $40 million deficit. Like last year, our tax base is more office than any other locality in Virginia. So our budget challenge will be more acute than other localities in Virginia and Northern Virginia. What's different about this year? What's leading me to say this is going to be a different challenge? Our staff has provided us with evidence that office valuations are down more than 10%. That's a conservative way of describing it. These estimates are more specific than last year, frankly. Further, in 2024, new construction from a few key companies led our property tax revenues to increase at the end. That is not likely the case in 2025. Finally, this year is different in part because our public safety employees, which are critical to our community, have been part of a county manager-led, with county board approval, conversation for ongoing funding to address the needs of our police, fire, and sheriff's office. I would align with the commitment to do all we can while balancing our competing priorities and the work that has already been started. As we consider this year's difficult budget, I commit to prioritizing the services and investments we need the most, to consider our equity resolution as we make decisions, and to being fiscally responsible. Third, there are some policies that I'll tick through quickly in an effort to keep my remarks under 7 minutes. Our economy, housing, schools and young people, climate, hunger, transportation, and equity. I'll try to be brief on each. We talked about our office vacancy rate as high as it's been in decades. The statistics from Ms. Hardy indicate that we have a large percentage of Arlingtonians who are working from home. That is a paradigm shift that impacts our offices. We must invest our time and energy in structural changes we need. We have an extraordinary workforce, Fuse at Mason Square, Amazon, tourism, a great place to live, great schools, great transportation. These are economic advantages, but we still have to make the hard choices to evolve economically. On housing, my two key priorities amongst many, and I'm thrilled that colleagues all are committed on housing, are homeless services and home ownership. About 7 or 8 years ago, I worked for Habitat for Humanity, and I had the honor of sitting next to Jimmy Carter, for 35 minutes for lunch. Talk about a humble, great person. He sort of shared how he had never lived in a home for more than a year until the White House. It was a special conversation. But Habitat's commitment to low and moderate income home ownership is part of who Jimmy Carter is, and because I worked for them, and also because it's the right priority, it's something I'm eager to work with Ms. Coffey as well as others on the board on affordable home ownership. Homelessness has increased. We have to address homeless challenges. That means in our budget, we should be focusing on those most in need, and preventing homelessness is an area I really look forward to working on eviction prevention, because both our hearts and our heads, our wallets make more sense if we prevent evictions in the first place. And Ms. Cunningham and I, we've already started some work. We need to pick it up. Not that we've slacked, but we need to pick up that work and work on it in the budget period. Our schools and our young people. We have a couple of advocates who aren't shy about sharing their thoughts in the audience today. This is something I'm committed to working on. I started my career as a teacher, so schools are important to me for sure. We have a structural budget deficit. We have to work with our school board superintendent, our manager, as well as our county board to close that deficit. On after-school programs, last year we fought for ongoing and one-time funding. This year we need to work with advocates and our staff to systematize the work. I do not see this as a pilot. This is a new and permanent form of business that I believe we need to invest in. How we invest in this budget is a question of detail that we'll have to work through. On climate, really appreciate the resolution that Ms. Cunningham and our chair, Mr. Carantonis, are bringing forward. I want to thank Manager Schwartz for making changes in 2024 to position us to move forward this coming year. I remain committed, not a surprise, to electric buses. I also this year will engage in outreach to our residents in our faith community to do climate work locally, because local work will be the primary, and I say primary, perhaps exclusive, but primary source of the change we must have to address climate. On hunger, AFAC has reported skyrocketing need this year. We must respond to this past year's spike and continue to build the infrastructure to better address hunger. On transportation, I'm grateful to serve on DMV Moves. Thank you to several of you on the board and Mr. Chair, Mr. Carantonis, for helping me have the opportunity to serve on that group. We face a deficit in Metro funding, not this coming year, but next year, fiscal year 2027, that is existential for our community and existential for the region. I plan on helping meet the challenge of long-term dedicated funding for transit through that work. On equity, I'm fully committed to bringing a more equitable, remain fully committed to building a more equitable Arlington. We have to be persistent on this. Just because it's 2025 and not 2020, we can't quit. That will mean working through the Community Criminal Justice Board on the interception points where we can appropriately divert people from jail and better address our mental health and substance abuse challenges. And I promise I wrote that before you guys showed up at the meeting. There are other equity challenges: digital equity, child care. I would like to be a good supportive helpful actually with you, Ms. Coffey, and consumer protection through towing policies that serve our residents and our local businesses equitably. Finally, to best serve our community over the years ahead, I believe we should engage in a conversation and ultimately a county board-directed citizen-led commission on how we should best be governed. Speaking for myself as one member of the board, we would benefit from that work and from analyzing what has worked and what will serve us best going forward. The time we have and the opportunity to serve you is precious. I commit to working with the urgency you deserve.